So when Chris contacted me and said to do something around Halloween, it seemed like so much fun. And I wrote something up for him about what I do and stuff, and he returned and said, no, it needs to be way more positive and making sure we're doing positive things and not doing witchcraft and, dealing with the dark forces, basically. And that's definitely the focus of what I do, but when I work with people, it would be very unusual that I don't see some sort of negative spiritual form that's affecting the person. Even emotional things, mental things, even physical things. What comes to mind is my daughter's 15, and her mom and I have different opinions about vaccinations, so she had to get some of the vaccinations, and I just saw these negative forms that come in with the vaccinations, and I was really glad to be able to help my daughter clear that out. Okay. So Halloween is a holiday that's been around for a while, and it comes from the Celtics back in a long time ago, where Halloween was actually New Year's Eve for them, and they thought of it as a time of going from basically from the summer to the winter, when there's more light, to the dark. And they felt that it was a time where the barriers between the physical life and the afterlife were thinner, so negative things could come in. But it also, the Druids were the healers of the Celtics during that time, but they could also see more things during that time. And part of their ritual was to get the Druids to, give them a vision of what was going to happen to them for the year, because they were, in that time, they were kind of, during the darker winter months, they were thinking it was darker spiritually also. And some years later, the Catholic Church came up with All Saints' Day on November 1st, so that added a different dimension to it. There's honoring all the different saints that don't have a day attached to it, basically. I read something that said, oh, it was such a good, it's like a marketing idea of the Catholic Church to attach it to the more pagan rituals that were going on. Halloween has become a really big holiday. To me, I look at everything in a more positive way, and it does seem, I think anything where people are celebrating becomes an opportunity for positive energy and positive light to come in. And I like to look at it in that way. So I'm going to I have seen some pretty scary things that, some things not so scary. I've also seen a lot of really good things. So I can, one time when I was living in Tinton Falls, this was probably like 14 years ago, because my daughter was like 1 or something. I was out, we had a deck, and I came in to the dining area, and there was this beautiful woman sitting at the table. And looked, so when I see things, there's a few different ways. Sometimes things look as solid as a person. Sometimes they're out in there, but they look kind of opaque, not solid. And then sometimes I see things in my head. When I'm looking at things, I'm always looking for, can it help the person? So when people say to me, well, what if it's all in your head? Or, how do you know? In one way, I can never know. But when I see things and do what I do and people get better, that's what I'm looking to happen. So this woman was this beautiful woman in this flowing gown sitting there, and at first I didn't realize it was not a real physical person. And then I got a little closer and I could feel this, even though she was really beautiful with like blue and orange flowing gown, I could just feel how cold it was, cold the energy was around her. So I did some of the things that I know to do. One of the biggest things that gives us authority over these negative things is the Christ energy that came in and sort of made humans have authority over that. So I called that light in. And she just got up and sort of left, almost like pouting, like someone throwing a temper tantrum, leaving, and walked by, and sort of floated by, and I could just feel the real chill there. another time I was treating this woman, and she started to say to me, I feel weird. She felt weird, and I said, weird's good, you've been very sick. It's getting better, it's going to feel weird when you get better. It's even going to feel weird when you are better for a while. Then she started to say, I feel really weird, and her skin turned totally pale. She started perspiring, and then she blacked out. And she was sitting there, so I had to grab her before she fell over. Part of me knew this was a good thing, because right when she blacked out, this form left her body that looked like, I can't remember the name, but not Darth Vader, but the bad guy after that in Star Wars. When I saw it was years before that, and I thought, wow, that looks exactly. But had these black and red things all over its face. It was in a human form, and had something on its head. And then I poured some water in her mouth. She came to. She ran to the bathroom. She reported later she threw up and had diarrhea and everything. I knew something good had happened, but there's always part of me, I don't like to see anyone suffer, and part of me got a little nervous when she blacked out, that's for sure. When I was almost surprised she came back, but she also felt so much better. She had been sick for a long time. Eventually I decided to tell her what I saw, and I was surprised again. She came back the next week, and her husband would always have the appointment after her. And that first time it was good because I don't think she would have been able to get home on her own. And I just felt like I needed to tell them, even though they came for the devices and didn't know about the spiritual part that I did. Basically, she said because she sees things like that in fictional TV shows, she was okay with it. Like that had been, I guess, opened her mind. And when I was explaining to her and her husband, part of what I said was you can inadvertently pick up curses and negative things from other people. And the husband, I thought, was very sharp. He said, he said, well, that must mean you can inadvertently pick up blessings from other people, right? Like, that's pretty cool to go there from that instead of like all freaked out and stuff. So, let's see. So I do see strange things like that all the time. I'm just trying to think of some specifics. One of the first things I saw actually was not creepy at all, but it was a few years after my grandfather had passed away, and I was at a movie in New York City, and I saw him sitting in the front row, and he was a unique looking guy. It would be almost impossible, and I didn't even know what to make of it. It was before I even thought any of this could be real. But he was there. He was like 6'4", really big, like 300 plus pounds, and he always wore a super nice suit. And then, later on, when I became trained and more used to this stuff, I, realized I got clearly that he came to say goodbye. He was a very loving man, and he's also was very abundant. He would make a lot of money very easily, and so whenever I ask for abundant energy for myself, I always see him there. That's kind of cool. Like many things in my life, it's been like a kick in the butt to become more aware of that. Like definitely my life changed a lot. And I started meeting a lot of people that had near-death experiences. I started meeting spiritual teachers and healing teachers. It just became, it changed the path of my life. I did have my near-death experience. It was very feeling-oriented, and I came out of it. Do you ever see the TV show The Dead Zone, by any chance? Mm-hmm. Basically, it's a Stephen King book. This guy was in a car accident in a coma for 3 months, and when he came to, he just started to know stuff about people. So I had some of that. I also had noticed my hands start to become warm, and I just would feel energy a lot. And at the time, I just wouldn't even think that, though. Like nowadays, you might think it right away. Like I just thought it was, in the same way seeing my grandfather was like, must be something off in my brain, basically, in my perception. So, but during my near-death experience, I went into the white light. It was all white light. It wasn't like I was really going into it, actually. It felt the most loving, the most wonderful, like everything was just great. And even when I say it, I start to connect into that energy part. It's like my heart opens up. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like now, I almost feel like crying. Mm-hmm. And so then there was a voice. It was like there was two almost beings behind me that I didn't see, but one said, "You have to go back, your father wants you to stay." And I knew the father was the spiritual father, and it seemed like God was there, and the voice was from Jesus, basically. And I didn't put the words on my experience till after. And when I started to hear the ocean of divine love and benevolence, that described what I was experiencing in the white light. Mm. When I heard about Mary and Jesus, I go, oh, that's what I experienced. And it was, again, my mind, luckily, and now I've learned how valuable that is in what I do, not to label things so quickly. And it was like, a lot of things have happened, even when I was, some years after that, I was living in New Rochelle, and I had this funny thing. I was driving home, it was icy out, and so where I lived was on this road that right before where I lived, there was this big curve, and I was coming down the road here, and I saw this car coming this way. He was definitely going too fast, so I stopped before the curve, and I knew this person was going to, and there was a parking lot right past the curve, and this car came there, and it started skidding, and I was there. I knew I was right, and somehow the car just went right into me. Wow. Right. So nothing happened to me, but again, it was a shift in my life happened at that time, and it was like a kick in the butt. A friend of mine once said, yeah, Spirit will tell you something in the beginning in a whisper, and you want to basically listen before Spirit knocks the door down. So in those two things, I didn't listen until the door was knocked down. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the spooky kind of things that I've seen just in the spirit of Halloween. Some years ago, this guy, I was actually at a workshop. This was someone I knew when I lived in Manhattan, and he had moved to California, and he was at the same workshop. And after he moved from New York, he found out that he had cancer. And he, I told him I could help him, and so we went into one of the cabins, and he had these negative forms with him. And it was interesting because it's like the negativity really wants us not to progress, not to connect with spirit. And there's certain laws in spirit that restrict it a certain amount. Like if we don't have an opening, it can't go in, but any little thing. So this guy was his opening really was he was against, Western medicine, which I understand I used to be until I started to really see things. So he had this negative form there that was holding him down, and it was really the right thing for him to do chemotherapy. And I just remember seeing his face, like there was a lot of darkness around him, and this dark form, it just looked like it wasn't as specific as the other person the other thing that I mentioned. And when it left him, he just started smiling, and he got very clear, to do the holistic and do the medical thing. And then it ended up being really good for him. Let's see. Some years ago, this woman that came to see me for a while, this is when I lived in Westchester, she would keep bringing in these different devices, and she brought in this device. It was a round thing, it looked kind of cool, but when I looked at it, there were all these little like psychic spiders on it, basically, these little black things. And I tried to explain to her not to use this thing, and she just didn't listen. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about the more positive things, because I'm not thinking...
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Some of these negative forms, it's almost like they have an identity or a consciousness, or
they
like
are
a virus or something?
There is a wide range of things. So there are demons, there's entities, there's dark angels, there's what's called a negative power, which is a very big thing. There's negative teachers, you know.
But some of the energies that if you were talking about how
there are energies, and then there are forms that would be like you'd think of like an angel. There is a dark angel. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There are things that are like with plants. There are like something that'd be like fairies. Okay, so they're more neutral. They're a little more on the positive side, but they're more neutral. They're like, you know. Then there's humans are pretty high up, and even though some people don't act that way, and then there are angels. So Jesus Christ is sort of at the top of the food chain, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then there'd be there. So one of the negative powers would be like Lucifer or Beelzebub. So these are real things that are really there. Okay. So there are forms, yes. I wouldn't want, the answer, I never got asked that specific question, so the specifics of what you were saying, it's not the same as us. Okay, it's just sort of a very negative thing that is, it is working within certain parameters and certain laws. Its job is to really strengthen us, but it's doing that by making things really hard for us. Okay, that's sort of the big picture. And so there are, I can't think of the name, so there are earth, something that's more attached to the earth. Like where I live, there's a lot of underground water, so there are these things, they're similar, they're not in the line, in the order, they're next, a little below fairies, but they're very, these things that will help us if we ask them to. Okay, so as humans, we have authority over all these different levels. Okay, that is the cool thing about us, is that we're on all these different levels. So there are thousands of levels, but we could say there's the astral, causal, mental, etheric, and then a bunch of different soul realms. But in the astral and causal, there's more negative things, but we have a certain amount of control over that. And so like when we have a nightmare, we're usually accessing into that. So in what I do, you have a question?
No.
Okay. So what I do is to invite these positive things in. Okay, again, and there's thousands of positive things. So there are obviously thousands of angels. There is the archangels. There's all the different saints you would think of. There's something called the Great White Brotherhood, the Lords of Karma. There's a lot of different things that that you can ask to help clear the negative things. Okay? So there's a lot of energy starting to move sometimes. It's hard for me to think about what to say when that happens, but it's kind of cool. So when I start talking about the Great White Brotherhood and the Lords of Karma, a lot of stuff started to clear here. Okay, and that is kind of a cool thing when that happens. Obviously, the Lords of Karma are in charge of our karma, and sometimes they will help us get rid of bad karma when we can do that. So let's see. I think what we're going to do now is do a meditation, because it's like there's just a lot of energy here for me, so we can do that and utilize that, because I'm not getting other words to put on that. So a lot of what I do has to do with colors, and there are something that's similar to angels that come with the colors. They're called the Master Kohans, and they can be very powerful healing physically. And that's a really cool thing. Also another line of healing is forgiveness, and that's that Jesus Christ brought in to this planet, that things can be forgiven instantly and given up. Okay, Moses at the time, it was a very high law, but it was the law of the land, which is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So if someone did something, they would, and before that it was just havoc. So it became that someone could sort of be forgiven by giving up something similar to what they did. There's still something sort of like that with our karma from other lifetimes, that we do have karma to complete. What happens in clearing the karma is, like, part of us, a lot of the patterns have been from many lifetimes, so part of us is very focused on working that karma, and it doesn't need to be nearly as bad as that, because part of us thinks, like, if we did something to someone, 20 lifetimes ago and then keep doing that pattern, part of us is very in the habit of that. If I work with someone, if it comes up close to the surface, then we can ask these different spiritual masters and beings to clear. Okay? So everyone just close your eyes and take a big breath. So in doing this type of work, we use our creative imagination. And so just, you can allow your imagination to wander, and things will be communicated to you in a unique way. And so whatever you see inside of you is what you see. And just trust that there's some wisdom in there and healing for yourself. We'll call on the light. Father, Mother, God, we ask for the clearing. We ask for God's love and God's light. We ask for the Christ and the Holy Spirit. We ask for healing, balancing, and clearing in line with the highest good. So just start to feel your body sitting in the chair a little bit and focus on your breathing. And we'll start just by just imagine some of the light coming in, which could be any color or clear light, just filling your body. If there's any ill health in your body, just allow the light to come into that. And for this, you can start to imagine a rainbow. And just imagine yourself moving toward the rainbow. And you start to feel some movement in your body. You start to feel a little pressure on your body. And you start to walk toward the end of the rainbow. And then you notice there's someone next to you, sort of walking along with you. You have a feeling it's someone that you've known for a long time, and at the same time you're not sure who that is. This person whispers into your ear that you can let go of any negativity, any negative forms, any demons, any entities that might have been holding you back. And just see darkness leaving your body, out of your head, up into the light, into God. Any images of people that you might want to let go of. any situations. And as you become clear, you can imagine healing masters or angels that are coming present into this room right now. The angels work in a way of harmonizing with your positive qualities. And then amplifying those qualities. It could be amplifying your loving in your heart. So focused into the center of your chest. And the healing masters come in for healing and giving blessings.
It is, and also it connects to wireless, which is win-win all around. Thank you. Thank you, UTT.
Just take a nice big breath. And then start to feel yourself in the chair. And open your eyes when you're ready. How's everybody doing? Anyone want to say anything?
Feel light.
Light is good. So one of the ways to learn how to do this is to have lists. Now I have many lists, and I first started to learn about lists. So after my near-death experience, I met this person who was a Sufi sheikh, and one of the things he did was radionics, which is not something that's done in this country very much. It is sort of it's wires and everything, but it's kind of cool because there's no power source. But it's basically, there are these different cards, and so they're not lists, but they're circles. Like there'll be lots of different things listed, and there could be a list of negative things like illnesses. There could be different negative powers, negative energies. There are also positive ones that could be crystals. It could be different remedies. A lot of times with that they use Bach flower remedies, but there could be homeopathic remedies. Okay, so you can have lists that would be like a list for your digestive system, and then the different parts of that, or any system with the different parts to it. So when I'm working with people, I'll usually get a pretty good idea of what it is. Sometimes I'll get to the point, so when you're getting the information, you're just looking like what's the thing that's going to open the lock. You don't need to get the right information in the way of get it all, because sometimes I'll just know it's the circulatory system, and then the energy will start to move. Sometimes that won't be enough, and I'll need to sometimes intuitively I'll get what part of the circulatory system it is, but sometimes I don't. And if it doesn't start to open the energy flow, I'll look at the list. I don't do that very much these days, but when I was learning to do this, that's what I did. So I'm telling you a bit about that. Then there'll be a list of all the positive things. So we were talking, there could be the Christ, the Holy Spirit, the archangels, the Lords of Karma, the Great White Brotherhood, and any saints mostly could be on that list. There can be different energy frequencies. I mean, there are a lot of things, and when you're first starting to do it, so when I do that now, I have a good idea of what it is. Like there could be, you could have a list of different frequencies. They could be electronic frequencies, or there could be vitamins. There could, you could have lists of anything, and then you sort of test for that. Okay, when I'm testing, I don't do a real testing now, but when I first learned how to do it, I was using a pendulum, and then started to learn muscle testing. Does that feel different to you? Yes. So it matters mostly how that feels to you. Okay. So what kind of positive energy thing do you think would help that to clear? So we're clearing the energy for right now. Just to give you an example, sometimes like someone might have a charge on like a specific thing. I'm thinking my daughter didn't do well on the test. And then she might go strong for that, and the charge might actually be doing well on the test. And then like there's a weakness there. So, and I'm just saying that because it's kind of abstract what we're doing here. But when you get it from weak to strong, it's really a cool thing, and you feel it. Okay, it doesn't always necessarily make sense, but you'll feel it. Okay. So see, I can see stuff is already moving for you. I don't know if you're feeling it, but your skin tone looks way lighter. So that's a cool thing. So sometimes just, starting this, especially when I'm there, it just starts to happen very quickly. Okay? So sometimes people have issues with doing well as opposed to not doing well. A lot of times people say what holds us back is not being afraid of failure, but being afraid of success. So just close your eyes for a second and breathe into your heart. So some stuff started to move there. Well, obviously, this is the very beginning of learning how to do this. So when I say, what is your heritage?
My heritage? It's mostly Irish and German.
Okay.
My father's mother was English, and my mother's mother's father was Slavic. So.
Okay. So it looks like some of the stuff, not the Irish stuff, from the German type stuff came through. So just take another breath. There you go. So as soon as I said that, it's like your energy field just really opened up there. So do you want to share about what happened with you? Because the energy came in, or you don't want to? Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know what to share though.
Okay. Well, you start to feel stuff. A lot of stuff is still moving, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like stuff I've been trying to work on for a while now.
Okay. That's good. Okay, well, let's. Do you want? So, what did you? Do you want to tell me what you chose to work on?
I just work on what was it? Right. The positives were the honesty and the authenticity. But
Okay. So, what do you? What are more spiritual? Is Jesus Christ a thing that resonates with you, or
yeah.
what would be something that would be like?
Buddha.
Buddha.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously Buddha was a master, and okay. So
I mean, or maybe I might have this wrong too. Is those were the positive traits. Things I want to work on would be forgiveness.
Okay.
Would be a big one. Forgiveness and courage.
Okay, so you could definitely, forgiveness is a good thing to try the muscle testing on, because there's a whole list of things to forgive. Okay, so sometimes the forgiveness just clicks. And so there, I mean, Buddha, in Buddhism, there's a thing that a lot of people do. It's really a very practical part, but Buddha was obviously a spiritual master, and there's an energy to it, not so different from the Christ energy. Okay, so when I look at you, you're looking at the practical part of it, and Buddhism is, can I clear my mind? But then there's the part, you clear your mind so this really phenomenal thing can come in that a lot of Buddhist people don't talk about. But most of the real high Buddhist masters, the reason they're happy all the time is because that part's happening. Okay, so that for you, that helps to start balance things. As soon as I look there and go, oh, there's that spiritual part, right? Okay. And so just breathe, and then you can let the light in. Colors can work. The purple color can be very helpful. Just, yeah, breathe into your heart center there. Be good to uncross your legs. Okay. Okay. So you can look at her face, how, like...
The hot flash
glowing.
probably.
Yeah. No, you look lighter and brighter, and your eyes are
I
clear.
feel that way.
Good.
That was interesting because not only did you point out one thing, but I forgot about the other factors on forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a whole necessarily, because there are many components to the forgiveness, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So for this, we're just looking to the place that gets that energy to move. So sometimes it could just be forgiveness, but sometimes it's like, well, I know it's forgiveness, but I need to. And sometimes it can even be a specific person. There can be even go to past lives in there.
Oh,
Things
cool.
that you have to clear. Yeah. Do you want to choose something to do, and I'll take a look?
Sure.
Okay.
Can it be like a little bit more practical? Like I'm looking at a new vocation for myself.
Sure.
Okay. And I'm having trouble.
Okay.
So I guess it's the trouble in finding a new vocation.
So I see your voice shifted.
Yes.
So probably something has shifted already. Okay. So from when you were talking before, but yeah, we can test things like that. Do you want to? We can test specific vocations, or something that's blocking you.
I don't know. So.
Yeah. Do you know what? Do you have an idea of the vocations, or you just want something different?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to find how I can use my gifts
Okay.
in the way that would benefit everybody, me
that's a good
and
thing.
others. Me and others. How's that?
So, do you have specific gifts, or?
My intuitive gifts, my creative
okay.
gifts.
Okay. Okay. So just put your hands on your belly there and take some breaths there and breathe into your belly. So as I was saying, there's part in the belly called the basic self there. So, I mean, I'm going to jump way ahead, but you have stuff from your childhood telling you not to do that. So just breathe into there and let that move through a little bit. And as I was saying, my son's an artist, and when he was choosing to go to art school, it was scary as a parent. But now he does really well. He sells art all over the world. And
That's amazing.
but he also has a business head. He lives in Brooklyn, and a few buildings down, he rents out a whole floor there's like 10 studios. He rents out the other 9, but he was very determined.
Good for him.
So, but he, that thing, so it's very possible. There you go, take another breath. So it's definitely possible. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So do you like angels and things like that?
Do I like them? Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, sometimes just the
Yes.
words, it's like...
Yes,
So
yes.
that's something that you could allow. So generally the spiritual energy comes into the right side of the body, but you have an angel that is like over your left shoulder there so just take a breath, and you can let that in a little bit. Part of you is afraid to do that. I think because it has more of a masculine energy than sometimes usually angels sort of feel feminine in a certain way.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
It is interesting because I remember in 2nd grade in Catholic school, the nun told us we all have angels and they sit on our right sides, and I knew I had one on my left side.
Oh my God.
Well, they're just saying what is there in this. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. In the Catholic Church, there's an angel, like head angel expert person, which always seems kind of
Kinda
funny
cool.
to me.
Oh, there's vocation for me.
Yeah. That's cool.
Thank you.
So, I mean, angels are real things. So, as real. That part, usually people have a sense of it and don't quite understand that it's real.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I'm lucky to get to see that stuff. But so when I first was doing this, kinesthetic feeling with my hands was really the thing, and the other stuff I developed over the years of, practicing. And someone I studied with, he was a French person, and when he said it, I wasn't sure he really knew what this word meant, but he would say, "You need to be more arrogant, you need to be more arrogant." And he was basically, and I've known him all these years, that was like 35 years ago, but he's super smart. So basically, and I know I work with people all the time that are experts in things that they probably know more than I do, but when I'm working with them, I know things. So in that same way, you can believe what you know, and that is a big part of it. Okay? So just put one hand on your heart and one on your belly there, and just breathe and let that in. So, the craziest things that you know can be true.
That ought to go on a post.
Yeah. I know, sometimes I say very cool things. I try to remember that. Okay, you want to go now, or?
Sure.
Okay. You have the thing you want to work on, or?
School, definitely.
Where do you go to school?
Brookdale.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Do you have a specific thing you're studying,
I'm still taking my prerequisites for nursing, but I'm just struggling with it. But
Yeah.
I know it's something I want to do.
or? What are the, do you have to take math, or you don't?
Yeah.
You don't like math?
And I just came from math class.
Oh.
So that's why
Oh my
I said that.
God.
Yeah. Do you not like
I
math?
mean,
or-
math really was stressed me so much, it made me all teary-eyed and everything. So
Okay, so do you like music? Is that?
I do.
Yeah, so I mean, music and math are in a lot of ways very similar. And I mean, I was someone who, math was my thing in school. I could always
Wow.
do it. My father's like a math genius, so it's like I got it from him. My daughter, who's a really good student, but when she was young, she could get answers to math problems when she didn't know how to do it. And it was great, but when she got to 7th grade, her teacher said, "I don't care if you can get the
Yeah,
answer, you need to know how to do it," and it sort of freaked her out. But and even the spiritual stuff is very much like math, like there's things moving. So there's that movement there of things lining up, and that's something you could just let in a little bit more. I don't know if you'll be able to do math better, but it'll help
I
you
understand.
in there. I mean, it could. I mean, it looks like well, let's hold your arm up. So, show me strong, show me weak. Okay, think of math. Okay. So, is it from this lifetime, another lifetime? Okay. So I just said, is it up to 10 lifetimes ago? So you. Let's see. Okay, so put your hand on your heart center there and breathe into there. Okay. So you could see her face. I always mean to show people, but your face just sort of shifted. Looks like you just lost like 10 pounds. So
You're smiling.
yeah, so that's kind of cool. So just breathe in there. So some of it has to do with your self-love. Okay, so which is your heart's here. Usually in the back of your heart is where the self-love part is. So a little lower. Yeah, right there. Okay. And just breathe in there a bit. So this is a pattern that you've had with math for different lifetimes, but it didn't start a lot of lifetimes ago. So when I was testing it went to a few lifetimes, so the last 3 or 4 lifetimes. Okay. So yeah, you had a past life, you were a little boy who was super smart in math, and you sort of annoyed people a lot with how smart
That's
you were.
awesome.
Oh, maybe you can call on that soul part
Yeah.
to help
So,
you
yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Well, I used to tutor people. What kind of math is it?
It's statistics right now.
Yeah, that was, even though I went into biology in undergraduate school, and I took that because I thought it'd be easier, but
Yeah,
I should have
same.
done something else because some people just don't have a knack for it. I work with the local school system. There's this guy there who's so good with that. There was this survey and he looked at it, and I'm looking at it like, well, what does this mean? And he came up with things that this stuff meant, and everyone in the room's like, wow, so it's cool. So yeah, but the other classes are fine for you, or?
No, just school overall.
Yeah. Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Brooklyn,
Uh-huh.
Abraham Lincoln.
And then are your parents here too, or you just came here?
No, they're here too. We moved
Yeah.
from Brooklyn.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Yeah, that might help you quite a lot. So, a lot of stuff in math is being organized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a great thing happen this past winter. I used to tutor people in math. This one girl who I was really good friends with, she was very smart, just couldn't do math. And
Yeah.
I basically had to tell her, you need to make lines on the thing and keep your problems separate. That's pretty, trying to tell her. She works for the Federal Reserve now. And I went out for dinner with her. I didn't know. She said, yeah, you inspired me so much in math. That's kind of a cool thing. So yeah, breathe a little more. There's a lot of stuff moving around. So it's part, like there's the center, okay? And we have the left and right, and you keep going to the left or right, but you want to sort of be in the center and let that energy, how old are you?
26.
26. Okay. So, and do they have nursing at Brookdale, or you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. There we go. That's good. Feeling good now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so that's going to move around. I mean, all this stuff, it moves around for a few days. So anyway, this is, obviously I've been doing this a long time, but you got a little taste of what it is. And see, it was kind of cool with her because the energy just came in as soon as she thought of it. And that was very cool. And a lot of times that happens. Part of it is you want to hold your mind back. And we're always trying to make sense of things, but it's usually it's in our unconscious, and there's this vast, all the stuff that happened in this lifetime and other lifetimes are in there, and there's all these different levels. It doesn't always make sense. Okay. Any questions or anything?
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yes.
How do I develop my intuition more? I think I know I can
Yeah.
feel people's energies sometimes, and it's hard to block that stuff off.
It is. If you look on my YouTube channel, there's some great meditations
I
and
love
other tools on
YouTube.
there.
That's how I learn everything. So.
Yeah. So, with anything, you want to understand it's not the other person; it's the openings in you. So someone this is a relationship thing, but I think it applies. And the numbers, I don't think they're exactly right. They're definitely not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the 80-20 thing. So you look at it's 80% you, 20% them. So you want to look at the openings. Sometimes it's totally the other person's stuff,
Yeah.
and you just take it on. But more times than not, you want to look at what the opening is. So if you could understand that can be very helpful. Also, in doing that, if you were to live a life where you didn't take stuff on from other people, you would be not doing enough. So it's pretty much, you can. So the person I met in my life, who I consider the greatest master healer person, I was at I guess it was a seminar,
Mhm.
and he was kind of old then, so his person who was taking over was doing the seminar, and I was asking about that, like, how come I can't clear myself? How come I pick stuff up? And the guy in the back said, join the club. And he was like, to me, I mean, this guy was just amazing what he could do. And he said, yeah, you know, it's just set up that way. You can't do it for yourself so much. So,
Yeah.
but loving yourself, the forgiveness. If you look, there's a thing called freedom writing on my YouTube channel that is probably the greatest way to clear yourself, which is really
I've
cool.
done it before.
Okay, cool. So, there's, you know, if you're going to do things, you want to be a nurse, you're going, you know, you can't go, oh no, I need to stay in the closet all day and not pick stuff up from people. Sometimes when you're really being of service, it's a certain protection. I mean, sometimes I'm working with someone and I see something leaving them and I'm so happy and they go zoop right into me.
Oh my god.
And it's like, oh,
I'm scared
man.
of that.
So what do you do then? I mean, when that happens?
Well, I do the type of meditation that helps clear it some. There's the freedom writing I do. I do some of this stuff that I was saying to you to do. And definitely a lot of forgiveness. And there's someone I talk to who does what I do because it is sort of set up, you just can't do it for yourself as well.
Okay.
The loving yourself is probably the biggest thing, and understand that even within those things, it's all set up to move you along your spiritual path. So even those negative things, it's can help you become aware of a pattern from other lifetimes or something like that. So, and sometimes that only helps the littlest bit, but you can know that that's true. You know, and it's, I mean, I know I do this stuff all the time, and there's definitely times. So I find journal writing really helpful, and the freedom writing is really good. Doing the meditation, the basic soul meditation on my YouTube is really good for that too. So you just got to keep going and keep strengthening yourself, and I don't think there's a way to stop it from happening.
I know.
Totally.
I get like periods of like afraid of it almost.
Yeah, I understand.
And I'm like, oh my god, I gotta black it off. I can't do this no more. It's just not me. And then I just keep getting cold back and attracted to it. And I just so yeah.
It's too late. You can't turn around. I know what you mean. It's like the greatest thing. It's like, oh my god, like I want to break. But
Yes.
no, it is sort of keep moving. That's kind of important to do. So understand they're in their karma, I'm in my karma. Like, how can I handle that the best way that I can? Okay. And in a certain way, try not to take it personally, because it's just all set up to be perfect, which sometimes, but there are other ways that it's perfect too. So it doesn't need to be a way that's hurting you. Okay. Yeah, there's stuff through your family line. It looks like your mother is kind of where there's a lot of stuff. So
yeah, well, my mother's the only one I know, so
yeah.
I just found out a couple of months ago that apparently I'm adopted. And
Oh, really?
My father's not my father, so there's a whole side of me I will never know.
Well, you'll know inside of you what that is and stuff, right? So whatever that family history is, there's a certain spiritual energy that comes through the family. And you don't need to know who those people are to allow that to happen. Okay, and usually once every certain amount of generations there'll be someone who's really like a light bearer, and then sometimes there's someone you wouldn't ever think is part of it, and they're not consciously, but still the energy comes through that line for their family, for your family. So that's there no matter what. Okay. Sometimes someone, like if you're adopted, can come in and be part of that. That's not biologically there, but still. So, like some of that will open up right now for you. Okay. So, and that can, just know that that is there no matter what. Okay. Even if you never meet him or anything like that. And I was talking about my grandfather. He was just really a light being person, and he was lucky to make money, but he was also, would love to gamble and stuff like that, so the family didn't really like him that much in a certain way. But I loved him. He was just, the happiest guy in the world type of thing. So. Well, you'll feel way better after tonight, so that's good. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little closing prayer. So, Father, Mother God, we ask for the clearing. Thank you for the healing and balancing. We ask for continual alignment with our soul and blessings for each of us. So be it. Amen.
Amen.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Very much.